Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the HerStory Online Summit. Today is day 7 of our summit, and it gives me great pleasure to start the day with an amazing song that has gone viral throughout the internet, created by a group of women who are protesting the war in Ukraine. It's a song that empowers women to step into our own, take back the narrative, to stop the war through peace. We're going to listen to the full song. Then I have a group of sisters who are with me today, and we're going to sing it together as well, so we can share that we are in solidarity with ending this horrendous war.
This is a call to all our sisters, the women of the world, to take part in the creation of a new video game. War is not a woman's game. For too many years, we have been collaborating with the patriarchal narrative, believing that armies and bombs keep us safe. For too long, we have been stripped of our liberty by the story of separation. This is not our language. It is not our way. War is not a woman's game. It is time for the givers of life to protect it. Women of Ukraine, you are not alone. Women of Russia, you are not alone. Women of Palestine, you are not alone. Women of Syria, you are not alone. Women of Israel, USA, Africa, India, Asia, Europe, Australia, North America, South America, North Korea, South Korea, China, Tibet, Afghanistan. You are not alone. Girls, young women, old women, witches, businesswomen, caretakers, fairies, mothers, grandmothers, great-grandmothers, men, trans, fluid. Let's show the world we're here. Let us start with a song, with a statement, with a prayer. I invite you to take part in the creation of this international ceremony video played by sending videos of you singing this song. Celebrating femininity, stepping into your power. If you feel this calling inside you, please write a word in the comments and we'll send more instructions. War is not a woman's game. And let's start singing. Come on. Yeah.
That is just beautiful. So, we are going to launch the day in song and sing in solidarity to stop these horrendous wars. Are you ready, ladies? First of all, let's go around the room. Just introduce yourselves to everybody, starting with you, Tracy.
Hi, I'm Tracy. I live in the UK, grew up in Zimbabwe, and alongside being a healer and working with energy, I've set about creating a path to peace movement.
Thank you. Denise.
Hello, I'm Denise. I live in North Carolina in the United States. I'm a military veteran and a writer, and I too am in pursuit of peace, however I can do it.
Wonderful to have you here. Selena. We can hear you, but we can't see you. Maybe she's dropped off. Melody.
Hi, I'm Melody, and I'm from New Jersey in the United States. I am a music teacher, singer, songwriter, choral director, band director, and I have a woman's band called Way Past Midnight. And I'm looking to bring peace as much as possible and harmony and happiness to the world through music.
Fantastic. So now we're going to join this amazing song. We've been practicing and rehearsing this morning. Let me make sure that we are visible. There we are. And we will sing it with them.
This is a call to all our sisters, the women of the world, to take part in the creation of a new living. War is not a woman's game. For too many years, we have been collaborating with the patriarchal narrative, believing that armies and bombs keep us safe. For too long, we have been stripped of our liberty by the story of separation. This is not our language. It is not our way. War is not a woman's game. It is time for the givers of life to protect it. Women of Ukraine, you are not alone. Women of Russia, you are not alone. Women of Afghanistan, you are not alone. Women of Syria, you are not alone. Women of Israel, USA, Africa, India, Asia, Europe, Australia, North America, South America, North Korea, South Korea, China, Tibet, Afghanistan. You are not alone. Girls, young women, old women, witches, business women, caretakers, fairies, mothers, grandmothers, great-grandmothers, men, trans, fluid. Let's show them we're here. Let us calm the storm with a statement, with a prayer. I invite you to take part in creating this international ceremony union by sending videos of you singing this song, celebrating femininity, stepping into her power. If you feel this calling inside you, please put out your request. We'll send you more instructions. Welcome. War is not a woman's game. And next time, come on.
right. Great start to the day. Lots of energy. So, the first person who will grace us with her story is my beautiful sister, Denise Newton. The stage is yours. Please introduce yourselves. Tell us who you are, why this is so important to you, and we will come back and do a Q&A session after.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gertrude. I am just so delighted to be here. And I just want to start by saying I'm just so grateful to Gertrude for so many things. She took me on a pilgrimage to Zimbabwe back in 2011, which changed my life in so many ways. I saw so many things that just energized me to get involved in just children, in the life of children, and reconnecting with my roots and wanting to do more in so many different aspects of my culture. It is just amazing what this woman taught me in such a short time. She taught me so much, and not even so much in what she said, but just her walk alone. I have to just shout Gertrude out. She is just, oh my gosh, she's a giant. This woman is just a giant, and just the work that she does. And she does it without looking for any type of accolades. She does it because it's in her soul, it's in her spirit, it's what she was put here to do. And she makes a difference in everything that she does. And I have to begin my story with her, because through her I was able to come back here and put a lot of things into place and to begin my own journey. So Gertrude, my God, you just don't know. And one day I'm going to tell that story in a big way, in the impact that you have made in my life. And I just love you so much. In regards to this song, I have a personal connection to this song in that I am a military veteran. I am an Army veteran. I served in the United States Army. And there is nothing glorious about war. There is nothing beautiful about war. War is hell. I know you've heard that statement before, and it's true. War is hell. People, and when you want to think about it, and this is not to bash the men out there, but I recall seeing an interview one day. It was outside of a rally where former President Donald Trump had a rally, and they were interviewing this woman, and they were asking her about, they was asking her different questions. And I don't know how it got to the point about war, and I think it was in regards to Afghanistan. And no, I'm wrong. They were asking her about women being president, and the woman said a woman should never be president. And they said why, and she said women are too emotional. And so and he said explain, and she said, well, women have that time of the month or whatever, and um, if she gets upset with another country about something, then boom, we have a war. And I remember the reporter saying to this lady, well, every war that's ever been started has been started by men. And the lady was standing there like, oh my God, that is true. She didn't even know how to respond back to the reporter once he made that comment, because it is true. Every war that's been started has been started by men. And this is not to bash men, but this is just to say it's true. There is nothing glorious about war. I was in during the Iraq War. During the war in Afghanistan, I was in the National Guard, but I was working with families. And so during the Iraq War, there was a building where a lot of my fellow sister military personnel were housed, and they were killed in that building. And so here you're talking about a lot of mothers that left children behind, they left spouses behind, they left families behind. And so, so no, there is nothing glorious about it. And so war is not a woman's game. And so we are nurturers by birth. We are givers of, we are givers. We bring life into this world, and we're nurturers. And war is not nurturing. There's nothing nurturing about it. War, in fact, takes life out of this world, not bring it in. And so I think that we are the ones, we seek peace, and we can't do that where war is concerned. And all around us now, there's some kind of war going on, not just the war in between Ukraine and Russia. We have morality wars going on. We have culture wars going on. There are wars everywhere you look right now, just everywhere. And it's just everything is just civil unrest everywhere. There's just, no matter where you go, where you turn, there's just something happening that's just unsettling. And this is why, I have this, call me naive, but I have this thing sometimes where I have this dream or this vision where, you can have women from all around the world just, joining hands and joining forces and saying, we're going to take we're just going to take it by force. We're going to take peace however we can take it, however we can grab it, and we're going to take it and we're going to make this happen. And I believe that we can, because I wholeheartedly believe that peace is achievable. It's there, and we have the power to do it. We have the power. We just have to make up our minds that it is achievable, and we have to just go about making it happen. We have to do it for those coming behind us. We have to do it. We don't want to leave a world of unrest to our children, to our grandchildren, to our great grandchildren, and those coming behind us. And right now the world is in chaos, and there's nothing. You get up in the mornings, and if you're like me, you get up in the morning, you turn on the TV or you open up your computer, and all of the headlines for the most part are just negative. You just don't see anything good. You just don't see anything positive. And that's just not a good way to start your day, because already your mind is affected that this is just not going to be a good day. The news cycle is just going to be horrible. And it's easy to tell people, just don't watch the news. But how realistic is that? How realistic is it not to watch a news report? Because everything that's going on affects you in some way. This is why we have to pursue peace. We can't just act like one day peace is just going to drop out of the sky and just land in our laps. That's just not how it works. We have to go out and pursue it and make it happen. And and let him who was willing, let him come. We just this again, everything is just so just off balance now, and it doesn't have to be. I just think there's too many people standing on the sidelines giving up. We just see it as being bad, and we're just saying, and there's too many of us that say, oh, it's just how it is. We just have to deal with it as it is. No, we do not. We don't have to deal with it as it is. We have to pursue that which is good. We have to pursue the peace, and it can happen. And, again, as a military veteran, I have seen the worst. I have seen bad. I have seen the bodies that had to come back home in those flag draped coffins. I've seen it. I have stood and given the 21 gun salute with families sitting there as we honor, a deceased one that died in the line of duty. And we had to fold that flag and hand it over to, either that husband or that wife or that mother, that father of that service member that was killed. And again, this is just how it is. So when I left military duty, one of the things that I began to just look at the world in general and say, this is not the world that I want my grandchildren to grow up in. Because I believe if we don't become pursuers of peace, they're going to bring the draft back at some point, because if something don't happen, these wars are just going to spread and spread and spread until where the draft comes back, and we're going to have not just our young men being drafted into military service. They're going to start drafting some of our young girls as well. And so we have to stand and have our voices heard. We have to get involved. People say, politics is a blood sport. Stay away from politics. Well, if we cannot stay away from politics. And yes, that is a man's world too, by and large. And I would go back again too and say, as with war or being in the military, that is still for the most part a man's world. It's a world that women serving in that atmosphere, and I know this from firsthand experience, can be traumatic. physically traumatic. And I don't mean the job that you do, I mean just being a woman in a man's space can be a traumatic experience because the ratio of men to women is pretty high. There's a lot more men than women. So a lot of times there are certain things that happen to women just because you are a woman. And so, this is why we have to stand on things. We have to take a stand. Um, it would be good for more women to get into positions where you can make decisions. If you look around, we have a major election coming up. There are a lot of things coming up on this ballot that will affect women. One of the saddest things that I've ever seen in my natural life was a few days ago. I was reading an article where there is a lawmaker who wants to introduce legislation that says women shouldn't be voting. They don't want to see women vote anymore. And that's because women are rising up in large numbers to vote and to make their voices heard. And this particular male politician wants to make it hard for women to vote. And he has no shame in saying that. And this is all the more reason for women to do what they need to do to make their voices heard. And so, we have to take that stand. So a lot of things dealing with women's freedoms and women's liberty is going to be on the ballot here in the United States in less than 60 days. We got 50 plus days to go. So these are the type of things we have to pay attention to, not just for ourselves, but for those coming after us as well. We need to get into positions where we can have a voice, where we can have a big microphone, where we can have a platform to say this is wrong and we're not going to stand for it, because we are the peacemakers. We don't want to continue seeing these ridiculous wars. What do we gain from these wars? And I'm saying this from the perspective of someone who's been involved with war. What do we gain from it at the end? And I heard one lady say recently, it's about the oil, and she is 100% correct. We're fighting over oil, we're fighting over stuff, we're fighting over power, but we're losing all these precious lives to these things. And it is just outrageous to me that this is what we're doing. We're losing mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers and cousins and neighbors over stuff. And this is why we got to stand up in strength. We got to stand up in large numbers. We got to stand shoulder to shoulder. We have to join hands. We have to join forces. That song that you just listened to, if you listen to that song, the words, and not just the words, if you looked at the faces of those that were singing that song, they were sincere. And you saw that they believed every word that they were singing. And I felt the empowerment from them. And that song is very empowering. But we have to, stand shoulder to shoulder and say, we don't want this. I don't care if you're in the United States, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, Zimbabwe. We need to stand with one voice, and we need to stand with one purpose. And if we do that, we could put some of this stuff to rest. We can change. We can be change agents. And that's what we need to be doing in this time and in this space. It's the pursuit of being change agents. Our children and our grandchildren and those coming after us, they deserve this. We cannot hand this particular world to them, because it is so flawed and it is just so messed up that we're handing them something that they can't possibly fix. They will never be able to put it back together. And so we need to do what we can do to make things a little bit better for them. And it starts with us. We can do it. The power is already in us. We just got to be willing to use it. And I, for one, am willing to do my part. I will pursue peace to the ends of the earth. I will pursue peace until I can't breathe anymore, because that is what I need to do, and it's what I want to do. And I hope that you want to do the same thing, because what affects one affects all. And that is what I want you to know today. And keep that song in mind. Let it resonate. Let it get into your heart. Let it get into your soul. And let us all stand shoulder to shoulder and fight these things that are trying to destroy our planet and trying to destroy humanity. And I want to thank you for listening.
Wow, Denise, thank you so much. You know, you unpacked so many things with what you've shared. Those words from that song are very, very impactful. They talk
Yes.
about us being in collaboration with the patriarchal narrative, believing that armies and bombs keep us safe. They
Mm-hmm.
said that for too long we've been stripped of our liberties for this story of separation. This is not our way. This is not the women's way. And it's time for the givers of life to protect the women of Ukraine.
Yes.
So I'll bring on our panel and we will just unpack and have a conversation around what you shared. Ladies, any input from Denise's presentation?
I really,
Oh,
yeah,
sorry. Carry on, Melody.
yeah, I really, Denise, I appreciated your very heartfelt passion. Having been in the army and seen war, firsthand. Being in it, and I can only imagine, what you went through. Come out on the other side and be, such a passionate advocate for peace and to do whatever you can do um, is very uplifting, inspiring, and I thank you for your service, both
Thank
in the
you.
Army and also now.
Thank you so much.
Mm, well, thank you. Tracy.
Denise, I think the big takeaway I got from what you spoke of from your heart is the sense of being misguided by people to believe that doing our duty is to fight for our nation, and that going to war and wearing a badge and being part of a machine, that no matter which side you're on in a war, being part of a machine and being there killing people
Yes.
is a good thing.
Yes. That's right.
And I think what came across for me in your story is part of this awakening to the fact of the lie. And
Mm,
it really is, it's those words. It is a lie.
it
You should
is.
stand up and fight for your nation. Um,
Mm,
I think, there's nothing more powerful than the person who's done a journey to be able to stand up and say, I've done this, and this is why I need to do something different now. And this is why
That's
I
it.
want a different way for other people. And I don't want my next generation to turn up and go, yeah, okay, so in this class of 30 kids, 20 of them are going to be in the military, and looking at the statistics of military sort of collateral damage, because it literally is just numbers. Looking at the concept of collateral damage, we can say that for every class of 30 people, at least 5 will go home in body bags. And that sounds awful, and I don't mean it to be, but that literally is the numbers game that's being played.
Yes. You are so true. You're so right. 100%. You're so right. On target.
Yeah.
thank
And
you,
that
Tracy.
somehow, yeah, and that somehow not standing up and going, actually, I don't want to do this. You know, I know, um, it's just so beautiful where you've got to with the story, and how you just know you've found yourself. And I think this is often the way, isn't it? It's like Paul Coelho's sister, The Alchemist. It's only when you've done the journey that you actually realize where you need to be.
Oh, I love that. I love it. Thank
Mm.
you.
Yeah.
So I was having a conversation with a colleague of mine yesterday with regards to peace and how each and every one of us as individuals can do a little something to make a difference in the world. And peace can only begin with you as an individual
Hmm.
in your moments of stillness and in your moments of quiet time. The ripple effect of that will go out throughout the world. So if you're listening to this video, wherever you are in the world, what practice do you have in your life to find peace within? It starts inside first before it can be felt on the outside of your world. Leading to that, I'm going to ask you, Tracy, to come on and share your initiatives, what you're doing in the world to try and bring about peace. I know we just met because I was looking for people to come and sing with me this morning, and you happen to be one of those women who just stepped up and said yes. So introduce yourself, tell everybody where you're based, who you are, where you're from, and the project that you are working on right now.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you so much, Gertrude. My name's Tracy, and I grew up in Zimbabwe. So for many of my childhood years, we were in a civil war. And this laid the foundations. We were constantly on call. We were given a narrative of what was right or wasn't right, and it was fascinating to read Dr. Tenerai Trent's account in The Awakened Woman. You know, I was a white child growing up in an environment where segregation, color segregation was the norm. It was only in my two last years of school that I was allowed to be in a school with children who were non-white, and it was so arbitrary. Our schooling was definition of white was white like me and Chinese, but if you were Indian or black, you had to be in a completely different schooling system. So there was a segregation that just didn't make any sense. But it also meant that each of us were being told a different story and had a different view, and it always felt so uncomfortable to not have the peace. And so we had this situation where, there was violence, there was people being killed, there were the most horrendous crimes being committed on both sides. You know, war doesn't have a good side and a bad side. You know, it just doesn't work that way. And so from that, I think, like a lot of us who grow up in these situations, it really impacted me emotionally and psychologically in ways that I wasn't aware of until much later on in my life. Anyhow, jumping forward from that, I qualified as an accountant in Zimbabwe and then came back to England and worked in a financial environment. And obviously I can add up a few numbers and make sense of numbers. And I just began to be aware of the big fights that were going on in the world, and that every time there was violence, you know, one day somebody would say, here's this wonderful person and this is wonderful country. And then suddenly the narrative would shift. And generally when I looked at it, there was oil involved, or there was some precious metal involved. And the whole idea of this, of getting involved in a war, what it boiled down to was rich men's greed and just a different person trying to exploit reserves and oil reserves. And it's always sat very uncomfortably with me. Going forward a few more years, I then had two nervous breakdowns or breakthroughs at work, and began a journey of real going in and doing the inner work and rediscovering who I was and who I needed to be showing up in the world. And along the route, I just came across so many beautiful things. So the Dalai Lama, looking at the work of Gandhi, just all these beautiful ways, and did lots of training in life coaching, hypnotherapy and NLP and things like that, ever more aware of what control we have over ourselves and what we can do for ourselves outside of the narrative of anything else that was going on. So fast forward to where we are now and the situation we are with the war. And there comes a point where you kind of go, okay, I'm just one person. What can I do as one person in the world? And that's what I sat with. And somebody sent this beautiful meme, you know, what can I do in the world, said 7 billion people. And I thought, you know, what's missing is this feminine collaboration. Going back to Zimbabwe, there is a beautiful, beautiful establishment in the native African culture, described so beautifully by Dr. Tenerai Tent in her Trent in her book, which is of the Sawiras. And these are groups of wise women who get together and they sit around the fire and they share wisdom. So it's generational. All generations sit around, mainly the girls and the young boys before they are old enough to go and join the men. And it's just that collaboration. It's about the nurturing. It's about the Sawira woman being there and giving an amazing environment or container in which young lives can be nurtured and be supported to grow. And there's sort of freedom within that for people to get things right or get things wrong. And I love that concept. So going back to where I was with this question of what can I do? I'm just one person. I also came across the work, I think it was of Gandhi, who sort of said, look, you can't solve a problem using the same tools that created it. And I thought this is so true. Looked at it as well. Not one single war ever in history has been resolved with violence. If you look at any of the wars, they only stop when people have dialogue, when you get sides together who go, okay, well, enough of this, let's negotiate peace. And yet, wouldn't that be the most simple thing? If we have, I'm a mother of 4 children. If the children started having about war at home, it wasn't a case of, here we are, here's some more sticks and a wooden spoon. And, I suggest you also use my rolling pin and let's just, sort this out like men do. It was always a case of saying to the children, look, let's find a different way. And that's where the women have it in their hearts. We're natural negotiators. We're natural peacemakers. We're natural sharers. We're community people. We stand next to people very different to us. And the first thing is that our hearts want to make people feel welcome. We have such adaptive skills at accepting people and their differences. What's going on at the moment is on every level we are being divided. So we have Russians being divided from Ukrainians, and in the narrative that's going on, it doesn't matter who you are, whether you're a kind person or not. If you are Russian, you are being seen as a bad person in the press. And this is carrying on in all sorts of things. In the COVID situation, people who chose to use certain medical things and people who didn't, and people who did this and people who did that. In everyday life, if you look, people, it's like governments have got a chopping knife and we're just being chopped into smaller and smaller divisions of being able to be with people like us. And the more we're divided, the less we can stand together. And that's what we need to do. It's really interesting, isn't it? In so many Christian countries, we have the 10 Commandments that say, thou shalt not kill. And yet, what is the first thing they do? They arm up the military, and the military is there to kill. And nobody sees the irony in this, So that sort of is some of where I've been journeying on and thinking. And then I looked again at the work that I've been doing with all the personal development training and self-development. And one of the things that you said, Gertrude, which is so true, is that if we want peace, it isn't an external act. It is something internal, because part of where I am now, I do a lot of work with energy, intuitive healing, coaching on an energy basis. And the future's not there yet. It hasn't materialized. And everything that is out there starts somewhere, and it starts in our inner world. So if we're prepared to work and settle and make peace in our inner world, we begin to see it externally. So that kind of took me to another angle, is looking at health. Do you know, it's not only in the UK, but we have the biggest mental health crisis that has ever existed in our time, and it is particularly with children. Within the COVID situation, the constant dialogue of fear and fear and fear and fear, no human connection, simple hugs, the physical connection with people, playing with their peer groups. We have created a generation who are so stuck in fight or flight that their only response is to fight, to defend themselves. We have little children who cannot communicate, and the minute people even approach them, they either run away and hide or they are wanting to fight them. We've created a war within our own children. So, this whole problem of war is so wide and so vast. Why is this important? Because there are such simple steps we can do to create peace by allowing our bodies to settle into the parasympathetic state where we are at ease. Because when we're in fight and flight, as I said, our only response is survival. And when we think we're threatened, we will do whatever it takes to keep our life. And that is often violence. When we come back into our own heart space and we are in our parasympathetic state, we are able to use logic and reasoning and learning. So we learn the consequences of what we've done. Because how often do you sort of say, well, why on earth are they doing this again? Can't they remember the carnage from before? So with all of that in place, I became aware several years ago that the 21st of September of each year is a designated UN Day for international peace. It is a day where there are supposed to be international ceasefires within wars and a reflection on how peace can have its place. In New York, apparently, there's a beautiful peace bell that was donated to them by Japan in 1945. It was cast, and it's supposed to be rung on the 21st of September each year. Did you hear about it? Was it publicized? Were there any big movements that you saw, big collaborations? Were the children in school brought together to celebrate and sing peace and find ways to be more peaceful, have a day where everybody's kind to each other? Not a chance. And this is the problem. This is the problem. The glory of war and the highlight of it and the media's desire to keep people held in fear and sensationalism has cut people off from this brilliance of peace and standing together in humanity. And it really is women's work. We never need to fix anything. We can't replace or fix the past. So peace happens the minute we decide that from this moment, I'm acting from peace. The minute we do that, everything else it disappears. And you see this in negotiated peace movements where there's been huge fights and wars that have gone for years and years and years. The minute they get together and say, from tomorrow there's peace, what happens? It happens. So little old me decided that there must be something I can do. And so I have begun an organization called the Path to Peace. It's very much in its infancy. And what I'm very conscious of is intention. Our intention in everything creates the energy to manifest from it. So I set about an intention to find a way that we could take steps towards peace. There's 7 billion people in the world. We know that if one person does something positive, it impacts the lives of huge numbers of people. I can't remember if it's 700,000 or 100,000 people. So what we know from this is that one positive action really does, like a pebble dropped in a pond, the ripples go out so far. That beautiful quote about, a butterfly flapping its wings on one side of the earth has an effect across the other side of the world. It's like that. So my initiative was for people to walk with intention, and for each of those steps to be recorded and donated, literally that, gifted. So we have a totalizer that adds together all these steps that people have walked in peace. So we have a representation, and it doesn't take an awful lot. Average 5,000 steps a day, 35,000 steps a week, 120,000. I used to be an accountant. You can tell I'm not anymore. can't do basic maths. But I mean, it's big numbers. And you do that 365 days a year. You get some friends together. And literally a small community of less than 3,500 people in a year would walk 7 billion steps. Imagine the energy within that, of all of those steps being with the end result of creating peace. And that's the movement. It's very, very simple. There's no fundraising at the moment. It's simply just sharing the message and letting people walk in peace. And there's going to be some other initiatives that will come through after that. And it's just going to be a landing place for people to share their initiatives for peace. And so that's kind of where I am. So yeah, that's how it's all added up to.
Thank you so much, Tracy. Thank you for sharing your story. Absolutely inspiring what you're trying to bring to the world. It does start with each of us, just taking that one simple step. And we are walking every single day. Imagine if we did walk with intention.
Absolutely.
Let's get some feedback from you, ladies. You are
Tracy,
both.
if thank you for sharing that, Tracy. That was really beautiful, really from the heart. Wow, I can't imagine what it must have been like to live in a segregated environment. I've had the privilege all my life of living in New Jersey, which has never been segregated. Now, I am of the Jewish faith. I've had my share of anti Semitism, but for by and large, I grew up in integrated communities for the most part. So I can't imagine what that was like. I love what you share about doing something positive and the ripple effect that it can impact maybe 100,000 people, or maybe 700,000 people. It just really got me thinking, about how we live our day to day lives. And what you say about war and the feminine, and, would we ever raise our children like this? I mean, I can't imagine, right? Giving them a rolling pin to just beat each other up, right? And also what you say about the Ten Commandments. Same thing. Isn't like the first, I don't know, it's like up there. One of them, thou shalt not kill. And what is going on? In the name of, as you said, oil, as Denise said, as in the name of money, big business,
Mhm.
just so, it's so ludicrous,
It is.
And you've
you
got to remember too that the weapon industry is fueling all these wars.
Yes.
The United States has now completely changed all of their arsenal. They sold all their old tanks to Ukraine. So they have to get rid of the old to bring in new and just perpetuate that cycle of violence and madness and generating money. We have some
Absolutely.
feedback coming in from Facebook. There's a beautiful message for you there, Denise, from Evelyn. She said that your story was very inspiring. Yeah, especially for somebody who has been in conflict zones. You really know what it's like. And Isabel, thank you for chiming in as well. She says she's following with loves. Thank you so much for being on Facebook and listening in today. And just to go back to what you were saying, Melody, Tracy and I were the two people who were on the other side of the fence. I grew up in Black Rhodesia. She grew up in White Rhodesia. My experience of being an independent person was walking into a supermarket for the first time at the age of 13. In 1980, Zimbabwe got independence, and Black people could go into a supermarket, pick things off a shelf, and go to the counter and be served. Before we had independence, we had to go to the back of the shop and you would point to what you wanted from there. I grew up where You couldn't walk on one side of the street or the other. Everything you experience with the civil rights movement, Denise, I've lived through this. I'm 55. This is a very recent history. And my experience of being an independent person was at the age of 13. Mom took me shopping, and I could pick things off a shelf and go and pay at a counter. So these are very, very recent things. And the war was horrendous
Yeah.
in Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
I
There
lost
were
a
no
lot of
winners.
family members who fought in the struggle against the British. You know, people gave up their lives for us to be free. And the British colony did some serious damage on the African continent. Horrendous genocide, and never acknowledged it. There were no reparations. I remember my mother's brother fought in World War II. When he came back to Rhodesia, all the Black soldiers who survived that war were given bicycles. All the white soldiers who took part in that war were given land, farms. 2% of Zimbabwe's arable land was in white hands up until 1980. So that's what the war was for. We were fighting to get our land back. So, yeah, these are interesting times when you look at war from both sides of the
And I
fence.
think, Gertrude, the thing is also we were just landed in it. It wasn't a choice. We had a government situation imposed on us. It if you look at most young kids, they would play with anybody. There wasn't we didn't see a color bias. It was something that was instilled. It was something we had no option to do,
Yeah.
or we thought we
So
had no option.
let's move on to the beautiful Melody. You will share your story with us now and what you are up to in the world. Melody and I met in New York almost 15 years ago, right? I can't even remember.
I know. Yeah.
And we were part of a group of women. I actually survived Sandy Hook at one of the meetings. Do you remember the meeting when I came and then the Sandy Hook storm happened?
Yeah.
The building we were in was completely destroyed that day. I ended up getting on a bus and going back to Pittsburgh. I couldn't even fly back home. I was working in Pittsburgh at the time. So Melody and I have shared a few pretty strange experiences, and we reconnected this year in a very magical way. So I'm really glad that you're here and you get to share your story with us today.
Yes, thank you. I'm looking forward to it. I am plugging everybody in so that my phone will not die out. Just bear with me a
Oops,
sec.
I'm getting busy.
All of a sudden, I got that 20%, warning here. So, let me.
Okay, your power.
Yeah. So, thanks for having me on, Gertrude. This was a spontaneous thing today, and um, I'm not surprised that we as women have come together with a song. Um, because music, I believe, is a conduit to peace and to bringing people together. So my name is Melody for real. That was my name my parents gave me at birth. I'm of the Jewish faith, and my Hebrew name is Miriam Shira, which means Miriam sings. So I think that what I do is was destined from a very, very early age, even before I was born. So I have been in music all my life. I am a singer songwriter, and I'm a lead singer and keyboardist for a band called Way Past Midnight. The core of us are four women, and we bring in men to play guitar or bass or bongos as needed, and we work with only the best of men who are also gatherers and pacifists and brilliant musicians. So, I think about what's going on in war and how ridiculous it is, and the hell of war, and the hell of um, chasing after material things, chasing after money. I've been in situations in business a lot where, we're taught that our only job as a business owner is to make money and make a profit. And I can tell you firsthand, at least for me, that was my own brand of hell. I've never been in war per se. As I said, I've been privileged not to be close to it in that way. But, you know, these wars are just about material things and things that are, so on the surface, where love and spirit and the heart and joy and peace and everything that people really want deep down inside is so anti-war. So once again, I'm not surprised that we came together today with a song. Music is the language of the heart. It brings people together. um, I've been in music education for most of my career, and my business was a education business. Now I'm directing high school choir and band and singing with my own band and gigging and just using whatever gifts that God has given me to help perpetuate peace and love and joy through music. Um, I'm not surprised that, and although I have been fighting the good fight per se in music education this whole time, in my own way, that music and art are things that are on the fringes, at least here in education in America. And that is so, 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 so wrong. So wrong. And I say that with all my heart and soul. Music saves lives. It keeps kids in school. It is so essential to our humanity, as is art. There's a whole half of the brain that has been um, put as residual rather than equal, and that's the right side of the brain, which is female dominant. The arts are female dominant. I do believe there is sexism in making the arts on the fringes and not as important as, say, math and language and science and all this testing and everything. And I think that we women need to stand up for that as well. Um, and so Gertrude and I, knowing each other for a long time, we lost touch for many years and then came back together. I just had this idea in my brain. I said, maybe there's some good that me and my woman band and maybe a couple of the men can do over there in your village, Gertrude. Maybe there's something we can do in Zimbabwe to make things better somehow. And Gertrude mentioned that the school that she tries to support, helps to support, actually does not have a music program. And I'm like, oh, okay, so maybe we could go over there and start a music program. Let's get the arts infused in this school. Let's get these kids singing together. Let's get them playing in a band together, because when you're singing in a choir, which by the way became a dangerous job during COVID, and I'll tell you about that in a second, that being a singing teacher during COVID, that was something. But back to Zimbabwe, I mean, so Gertrude and I have this vision of teaming up together and getting music going in that village, in that school, somehow fundraising by performing over there, and teaching the teachers how to do this, getting the resources that they would need to make music an integral part of the schooling. So, as I said, during the pandemic, being a voice teacher, a singing teacher, a choral conductor, um, my job became dangerous for the first time in the 30 years that I've been doing this. And it was a very scary time. I remember the day that Broadway shut down here, and I was teaching at a community music school when I found out. And I had a student with me, and we were like, what? And all the fellow teachers, we were just, you know, shocked. And the high school musicals, the kids that had been it was right in March, and the high school musicals the kids had been working so hard on. Many high schools, they didn't have their musicals. That was really devastating. And Tracy, you talked about mental health. I mean, it is a crisis right now. The high school kids, my own daughter was class of 2020. um thank goodness now that the pandemic has subsided. um they're back to some normalcy. She's actually in England right now, my daughter, having the time of her life abroad. But what I did when Broadway shut down was I was like, oh my goodness, everything went online. I had to teach voice lessons, piano lessons online. Everything was shut down. There were no more gigs, no choral conducting live. I taught choir over Zoom. It was crazy. But what I did was I said, I just want to do something good for the world. What can I do? What can I do to put a piece of myself that's good out in the world? And Tracy, I hope that what I'm saying and what I did and I'm going to continue to do, I hope that it rippled out somehow. I don't know. I don't know, but I hope that it did. So what I did was I decided to have a one day at a time concert, and I worked up either a cover tune or an original every single day. Um, about starting 2 weeks after Broadway shut down, 539 days. I sent out 539 songs to my friends and family. There were about 40 to 50 people by text individually at 8 a.m. every single day of the pandemic until Broadway reopened. And that's what I did. I called them quarantunes. And yep, 539 songs. So now I do them once a week and still send them out to friends and family. But I do believe in the power of music to heal and to bring peace and love and joy in the world. And that's all I got to say.
Absolutely beautiful. I'm really excited to see what we can do with this collaboration.
Me too.
Music is very much a part of our culture in Zimbabwe. And yeah, so my nonprofit is just about done to be registered in the US. So I
Nice.
think we are in a
Grad-
position where we can getting some
Fantastic.
donations and
Yeah.
seeing how we can make it all happen. Very, very exciting times ahead. Any feedback, ladies, for the beautiful melody?
I would just
Denise.
say real quickly, as she was talking and talking about how music brings people together, how it heals the heart and everything, it made me think back to the 80s when the song We Are the World was recorded. Music can definitely bring down the temperature, it can change the atmosphere. And if we ever needed a We Are the World moment in the world, it's about now. So I know that you are so right at what music has the potential to do. And just listening to you, talk about, the passion in your music. I'd love to hear some of your music because I know that just the way you talk about it, then I know your music is amazing because you talk about it with such passion. And also, and then when you talk about how music can save lives, music can go places in the heart where words can't. I just believe that. I think about times when, when I'm down, depending on your mood, music can change your mood. You could be angry and listen to a certain song, it can bring you out of that. You could be depressed and listen to a certain song can bring you out of that. So music is extremely powerful. And then one other point I want to make that you were talking about, you was talking about music and arts in the school. I worked in an elementary school for about 8 years. And one of the first things in recently that went on the chopping block is the music programs and the art program.
Mm-hmm.
And that was mind-boggling to me, because those are two areas outside of sports where a lot of kids pursue in, as a career, music and arts, and they were cutting those programs. And I just could not for the life of me understand how you take that away,
Absolutely.
and so that was just crazy to me. So I mean, I just so appreciate what you are contributing to the world through your music. And just, I love music myself. And I mean, I fall asleep to it every night. I listen to, just instrumental music. Just helps me to calm my nerves after a day. But you just seem to be just such an incredible individual and just so creative. And I just love everything about what you said here today. So thank you.
Melody, I love that. As I said, part of my work is energy, and every organ in the body responds to a certain vibration.
Mm-hmm.
And a pure tuned voice. I love all the a cappella in Africa. I mean, when you get those choirs together, it creates a sound like you never hear. No instrument can replicate it. It is so beautiful. I just love that idea. And I think there has been a structured decision worldwide through the leadership to stop creative arts, because
Yes.
where does all manifesting of our dreams come from? It's from creation. It's from our creativity. How do you control people? You stop them being creative.
Right.
So it's not accidental. It's not accidental. It's happening everywhere. And the way we have to get around it is to resource these things so there's no fees, so that the parents any child can access it. If the school aren't doing it, don't fight with the school, because they're not allowed to do it. Create something outside, create something online. I love what you did with your family, your way of connecting them to the heart with these beautiful songs. And it just shows how a little act, those things shared with 10 people who shared with 10 people,
Mm-hmm.
before you knew it, you've touched the hearts of a million people.
Yes.
And I just love that, because it just shows how it literally is one step at a time. One little step is enough.
Yes.
It's wonderful. We've got Evelyn chiming in from Kenya. She said, I love this conversation, following it from Kenya. Tracy put it so precisely. Peace has to be internal. Thanks, Gertrude, for the history recap of Zimbabwe. I haven't heard it before except in history books. And lovely story by the musical melody. Great theme. Fantastic. Thank you for participating all the way in Kenya. This is awesome. So, ladies, our next presentation is a video that was sent. I'm going to see if I'm having any challenges with videos. Yesterday was a little bit challenging. I'm hoping today will be better. Lizette is a young woman who is based in the US. Let me see if I can find her video. I was downloading it a few minutes ago, so hopefully it is available now. It's interesting. If not, I have a backup. So Lizette is a young woman who has been going through a huge challenge. I'll just line up the video then a little bit. Bring us all back. Okay. So Lizette is a young woman who lives in the US and is slowly going blind. This happened overnight at the age of 37, and her whole life has been turned upside down. I will let her share her story now.
My name is Lisette Rivera. I'm in Davenport, Florida, and I have macular degeneration. I am known as the low vision candle maker. That's my intro for all my videos, everything. I am on social media, so I tell my story publicly. So where it starts is in November of 2019, around Thanksgiving, I woke up blind, completely blind. And I sat up in bed and I started freaking out and I couldn't see anything. My husband woke up and he's like freaking out too because I'm going crazy. And he's like, "What's wrong?" And I couldn't see anything. There was nothing. And obviously I didn't go to work that day. And after some time, different doctor's appointments, I finally got a diagnosis and it was macular degeneration, which is weird because it's called age-related macular degeneration. And I'm not old. I'm 37 and I don't know how I got it. They can't explain how I got it. I get treatments in my eyes, which are injections in my eyeballs with no sedation. Is it horrible? Absolutely. It's traumatic, it's scary, it's stressful, but it brought me some of my vision back. So, I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place, like, which is, I have to do it in order to see. So I really don't have a choice. I'm going to get them for the rest of my life because there's no cure for what I have. So I'm going to continue to get the injections every month until they don't work anymore. Enough about that. I was stuck at home and I went through depression, of course, like any normal person would, waking up blind. And my life completely changed. I went from working, going to school full time, I have 4 children, to being stuck at home, not able to see, couldn't drive, couldn't work. School was a struggle. And I kind of lost my passion for schooling too, because I knew I wasn't going to be able to do what I wanted to do. So I needed something to occupy my time, and I started looking into what I could do from home. And I chose the most difficult thing somebody that can't see can do, which is candle making. My reason is because sight correlates to memory, and I couldn't see. So, I wanted something that, I can relate to, that could never be taken from me. My sense of smell was stronger than ever. So, I just dove in headfirst into candle making. Even sighted people have a problem with candle making, and I don't know, I picked it up and I decided to turn it into a business. The reason for my business is because, number one, to keep me sane and to keep, my mind occupied. And number two is because there is not that much like knowledge and recognition. There's no awareness on my cause, macular degeneration. So what I want to do is I want to be an advocate for those that are in the same position as me. I want to be able to help pay for Ubers. What I don't want to do is I don't want to fund research. There's plenty of funds out there that cover research and that cover CEOs' salaries. I don't want to do that. I want to help the people that are at my doctor's office, the people that I see struggling on a daily basis, the people that I come across. Funny story, my husband was at work one time. He's a bail bondsman, so he meets strangers all the time. And a lady walked in and he hands her the iPad and he says, "Here, can you fill this out?" And she's like, "I can't see." And he was like, "What do you mean you can't see? You want me to make it bigger?" And she's like, "No, I can't see. Like I just lost my vision recently." And he was like, "Really? My wife did too. Let me call her for you." And so he calls me and I'm like, "Hello?" And he's like, "I got this lady that wants to talk to you." And I'm like, "Okay." And he's like, "Yeah, I told her that you're blind." And I'm like, "All right, awkward, but okay." So she gets on the phone and she was so timid and so scared and she was embarrassed, I could tell. And I just told her, "You know what? You don't have to talk in front of him. Call me later, take my number and call me later." And she actually did. And I helped her get in touch with the Services of Blind Department of Blind Services. That was Department of Blind Services. I helped her get in touch with them. And I actually decided to call for myself. I'm learning Braille too. And that's where my passion for wanting to help people like me came from. I always wanted to help people, but I didn't know in what capacity. And helping her, like, it made me realize that number one, there's a need for it, and number two, like, I just got joy from helping others. So my goal with my company is, of course, to sell products, make a living, raise my kids, help my husband out because he's doing it by himself right now. But I want to help others with the proceeds. Right now, what I'm doing with some of the proceeds of my sales, I donate them to pay for Ubers. I've paid for a few people's co-pays. I know that some people around the world don't have healthcare like America does. And honestly, if you're from America, the healthcare system is embarrassing and it's appalling. And I don't think that it's fair that a disease that is so prevalent, there's 20 million people in the world that suffer from some sort of visual impairment, not suffer, but that deal with it. And there's no funding for it. People have to literally choose between having dinner, feeding yourself for the month, or paying rent and paying your co-pays. And I don't think anybody should have to decide whether they want to see or if they want to eat. Like, that just, it doesn't make sense to me. So I want to take some of my proceeds and help those that can't afford it.
Now, if you were to have a conversation with that younger woman in 2019, hit with a crisis, hit with a condition she has no idea how to deal with. There's a lot of people who listen to this podcast who might have family, friends, who might be going through something similar themselves. You could give 3 nuggets of wisdom, 3 pieces of advice based on what life has taught you up to this point. What would you say to them?
The first thing I would say is give yourself time. Be kind to yourself. Acknowledge what's happening to you, but understand that there's a reason behind it. Give yourself time, be kind to yourself, let yourself heal. But after that, it's time to get over that, and it's time to move on with life. You need to learn to adjust to your new life and just continue. Keep striving forward. My second piece of advice would be, if I could talk to my younger self, I would tell myself things are going to get better. It may seem hard now, but things are going to get better. Continue doing what you're doing and take your lemons and turn it into lemonade. Take what others may seem as a disability or a disservice and turn it around and make something positive out of it. Spread awareness. Find yourself again, because just because you're not the same person that you were, or just because you may think that you're less than what you were before, that is not the truth. I'm sure if you talk to other people that have disabilities that were born this way, they don't look at themselves as less than somebody else. A lot of them actually like to call themselves able-bodied instead of disabled, which I get it now. And my third piece of advice would be make the best out of a bad situation. My third piece of advice would be to find the silver lining in what you are going through. Everybody has struggles. Everybody goes through things, and nobody's life is perfect. So find what makes you happy. Try to find your purpose. Find the reason why this has happened to you, and just go full throttle.
Beautiful. Now, you obviously have had to learn new ways of coping with this condition. I'm told that sometimes when you lose your sight, your other senses become more heightened. Has that happened to you? How are you experiencing the loss of your sight?
I definitely feel like my other senses are heightened. The reason why I wanted to start my brand, which, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned this, Five Senses Candle Co. If you don't see it's on my shirt. The reason why I wanted to start it is because, as I mentioned, scent correlates to memories. I may not be able to see, but I'll always have my memories. And my purpose was to create scents that brought back memories, brought up some sort of nostalgia, made you experience things that you've experienced before. I don't know if I mentioned it before, but my company's name is Five Senses Candle Co. And the reason why I wanted to start it was because scent correlates to memory, and I was no longer going to be able to use my eyes. So, of course, my sense of smell was just like, but it turned bionic. So I wanted to recreate scents that I would remember, that would bring back nostalgia, that would like evoke these memories in me. And I want to share that with other people. So, being low vision, I've had to find ways to adjust to like my normal living. And it's so weird because as a normal well, not normal, but a seeing person wouldn't think of the tiny little things. Like, for instance, I can't see, and I'm a woman, and my security blanket is makeup. I've always loved makeup, and I could no longer see well enough to do it. With practice I did, but there's these little tricks. Like, I'll take the wands and touch the tip of the bottle and run it across, and then I'll be able to put it in. It's so weird. It's little tricks like that. When I'm cutting, I put the knife against my hand and I let it run that way. I mean, I guess that's the way you're normally supposed to cut, but now I cut the proper way because I don't have, my sense of sight. And then another weird thing, when I was creating my candle brand, I ended up getting COVID and I couldn't smell either. So I was down two senses. The only two senses that I needed, I was down because of course I couldn't eat my candle, even though they are vegan. But I don't want to eat them. They don't taste good. But yeah, I was down my sense of sight and my sense of smell. So I got a little discouraged and I stopped making candles for a bit. And then I don't remember what happened. And my husband looked at me. He's like, "You don't smell that?" And I'm like, "No." And that's how I realized that I have a sense of smell. So I got right back to work. I started, I got back in my little makeshift studio. I created my scents. And another point that I wanted to bring up for my low vision people, I know that some people may not be comfortable burning candles, but I also make room and body sprays, wax melts, which can be used without a flame. I have candle accessories to promote safety. And, I'm not just selling to low vision people, I'm selling to their parents, their spouses, their children, adult children, not kids. But, you know, when you lose one sense, you don't have a choice but to figure it out. And that's what I did. I have to, I don't have a choice. So I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep finding ways to figure it out. What I don't know, I will learn. And it doesn't hurt also to follow, low vision people on social media. They also teach me a lot of stuff.
Fantastic. So it's almost to me like you had to find a new tribe, a new group of people who were going through a similar experience, but also learning to use your other senses and be very present, because when you are sighted, you take cutting something for granted. Holding a knife and chopping an onion, for example, you don't even think about where you're placing your hands and how careful you have to be. So I think you've been gifted the gift of presence, from what I can hear. You have to be truly present to everything you're doing now. Experience. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Now, if I could take you into the future, you're now 100 years old and you are talking to that wise woman who's been through so much but has led you to the age of 100, and you're surrounded by your children, your grandchildren, your great grandchildren, your dogs, your cats, whatever the future has in store for you. If you could have a conversation with the older you based on how you're living your life right now, What would you say to this wise woman who's led you to that point?
You go, girl. You go, girl. The reason why is because I feel like now I am so much more driven. I am so much more determined because I don't have that. I don't have other opportunities. I can't go and work a regular job. I don't want to work as a door greeter at a grocery store. I want to help others while helping myself. I would tell her that I'm so proud of her, that she went from barely knowing how to turn on a computer to building a website, creating labels, taking pictures while you can't see, editing them, putting them online, building an audience, and sharing your story. I am super transparent with people online, with my following, with my friends, with my family. I told myself that if I was going to share my story, I was going to be 150%. I don't only share the good times, the happy times. If I'm having a bad day, I post it. I'm having a bad day. If the days that I get injections in my eyes and I'm feeling a little bit emotional, I post those days too. Actually, on my social media, I shared myself getting an injection because, like I said, it's all about transparency. So I would tell younger Lisette that I am so proud of her, that she did more than was ever expected.
That is absolutely beautiful. You know, I love to ask that question because I believe that we are born with all of the answers to all of our problems, and that time is an illusion. Sometimes when you're struggling with a challenge, you can teleport into the future you, the person you want to be, and have a conversation with that wise woman and ask her, what do I do? What is my next step? And she will guide you there because she's already guiding you now. All these things that you're coming up with, you're being creative, you're not standing still and having a pity party. It's a source of inspiration. And I'm really hoping that there is somebody else who is listening to this interview today who's going to be absolutely inspired by your story because you have gone through so much, but you're not letting it hold you back. You're not letting it stop you from being who you are. So, what are your parting thoughts? What is your dream, your vision for your business going forwards?
I want every low vision person, everybody that has somebody that's low vision in their family, I want them to know who Lisette Rivera is. I want them to know what Five Senses Candle Co. is. I want them to know that it helps others just like her. I want everybody to know that I'm a part of the community. I'm not just hopping on a bandwagon or having a, taking advantage of a under under I don't know, privileged maybe, but not really privileged, but like I'm not taking advantage of a community that doesn't have anybody that has their back. I want them to know that I have their back. I want everybody to just know who I am. I want to share my story with everybody. And I want to encourage others to share their story too.
Absolutely awesome. And so, where can people get access to your candles? I think I have your website running at the bottom of the screen, 5centscandleco.com.
FiveSensesCandleCo.com. I'm also on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, and TikTok.
Fantastic. Well, Lizette, it's been an absolute honor meeting with you and connecting with you and hearing your story. Thank you for showing up, and please keep showing up because people need this kind of inspiration. I believe that even if only one person hears a story and it helps them wake up in the morning and just keep going with their day, then your job is done. So don't give up. It's an
That's
amazing journey you're on. And I can sense there's more to come. This is just the beginning.
This is just the beginning.
Thank you to everybody who tuned in today. The Her Story Circle is attracting some phenomenal women from all over the world with amazing stories, with amazing challenges, but they keep getting up and putting one foot in front of the other to deal with those challenges they're faced with. So come back again tomorrow when I interview yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And Lizette, thank you again for this amazing interview.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody. Wow.
Hmm.
I'm always inspired with the women that I meet and I get to connect with. This is a young woman who's losing her vision. I can't imagine what that would be like. Young mom, 4 kids, fully functional at one point, and now she can't even leave home without somebody escorting her. But her attitude is amazing. She keeps going, and I guess that's the only way you can deal with these kind of challenges. What is your feedback, ladies?
I sense this necessity as the mother of invention. And, you know, if we look at so many stories, people don't just decide to do things. Something has happened in their lives, and given the chance of sinking or swimming, they make that choice at that time. I think it's amazing, and it's just so inspirational that her whole story and the generosity of her heart to not kind of fund people who've already got the money, to fund the people that aren't addressed by a situation. That's
Yeah,
beautiful.
absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, her story.
Denise. Okay.
Yes, her story is very inspiring because instead of focusing on what she can't do, she's focusing on what she can do. And, isn't that a way to live life? I mean, so many situations.
Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
met a young man in New Mexico when I was lecturing at the university in Albuquerque. He was quadriplegic, couldn't use his arms, couldn't use his legs. He could move his wheelchair with the back of his head. Incredible guy, musician. I helped him write his first book, and I said to him, Mark Anthony, you've got your voice. That's all we need. Just record yourself telling the story, and I'll show you how to write this book. And we produced this book in 3 months. And I was having a conversation with him one day, and I said to him, how do you wake up every morning and just keep doing what you're doing? And he said to me, Gertrude, life is beautiful. Life is beautiful depending on where you look. So I make the choice every morning to look for the beautiful things in life. I wake up and I can feel that I can breathe and my lungs are working. He was funny too. I mean, he broke his leg. He has this funny story of this disabled guy who fell over and broke his leg because he got drunk one night and toppled over in his wheelchair. Quirky sense of humor. He's a rapper, he's a musician, but he has his voice and he uses it in the most unique way. So these kind of stories remind us that you could have all of your senses, but what are you doing with them? Are you using them to the full?
Mm.
It's very,
Yes.
very humbling, right? Denise, what's your feedback?
Well, I'm just so in agreement with Tracy and Melody. I mean, and then what jumps out at me is no excuses. Anything that you want to accomplish or you need to accomplish, there's just no excuses. I mean, whatever state you find yourself in, that if you're willing and you have the will, you will find a way to make things happen. Of course, she could have just let go and just let her disability just overcome her. And she would have, especially not being able to see and just become a person that just have others to lead her around and just sit in a corner and just, just give up on life. I think, especially being young like that, it would be easy to do that, just give up. I'm young and I can't see. My life is not going to get any better from here. She is a tower of strength. I mean, my God, I just can't imagine what that would be like at her age to lose her sight, and especially being a young mother with children. So I just listening to her story, and I'm just thinking about little things that I make excuses for every day that makes me just want to slap myself and say, "You got to be kidding me!" Look at what this girl goes through. I get up in the morning and be like, "Oh, I got a headache today. I think I'll just stay in bed for another 2 hours." My back is bothering me today, so I'm not gonna do this what I intended to do because I got a backache today. Okay, well, just slap yourself and get up and let's go. So she was beautiful. She's amazing. That's all I can say
And
about
that's
that young lady.
and that's the power of these stories, right? They help us reframe where we are in our lives.
Mhm.
You think you've got it really bad. There's some people out there who
Whew.
have it worse.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Lizette. We really enjoyed having you with us today in spirit.
Yes.
So, our next presenter is another unusual young woman. Her name is Melissa Coons. She's the owner and founder of Spirit Guide Funerary. She's a psychic medium, an intuitive tarot card reader, an ordained minister, a certified relationship coach, certified death doula, a writer, a businesswoman, and a former educator. Spirit Guide offers her the opportunity to combine all of her skills and experiences into one place where she can truly make a difference in someone else's life and help them at times where they need the most guidance and support. Melissa had over 16 years' experience as a tarot card reader and a psychic. She uses her gifts to help people gain perspective, insight, and guidance on all situations in life. Being a psychic medium and an intuitive has given her a unique relationship with loss and grief, which allows her to hold space and guide others through their healing. What has drawn her towards being a death doula and opening Spirit Guide for funeral and healing services. As a former educator, Melissa was a certified special education English and social studies teacher. She's taught students with social, emotional, and behavioral challenges before expanding her learning into business and relationship coaching. She became an ordained minister and a certified relationship coach in March 2021. She brings this experience into her relationship coaching, especially her family sessions and sessions with teenagers. Her goal with relationship coaching is to help families, couples, and individuals of all ages build healthy connection with others and with themselves. So, thank you, Melissa. Another very, very different presentation. We will share your video and then have a conversation about it as well. It's been really interesting during this summit, the range and variety of speakers who are stepping forward and sharing their stories truly humbles me. Where you're based, how old you are, and share your story with us today.
My name is Melissa Coons. I'm based in Littleton, Colorado, United States. I'm 33 years old, and I just did a funeral home startup. I know it's a little unusual for a young woman, especially someone whose family is not in the funeral business, to do a funeral home startup, and that's also not a startup most people do. But it was really meaningful to me, and I have such a unique experience and perspective in regards to death and grief that I wanted to start this business to help people with healing. And I know you don't think of going to a funeral home for healing, but to me, that seemed the most logical place for processing grief. So my story and how I got here is kind of wild and crazy, but that's how life goes. I am a certified relationship coach, a certified death doula, an award-winning author, a psychic medium, a tarot reader, and a businesswoman. So starting a funeral home seemed like the most logical way to take all of these aspects of myself and bring them into one place where I can really help make a difference in people's lives. And how I got here is not at all what I expected. I learned a long time ago that life doesn't go according to plan. My childhood dreams were to be a writer and a teacher, which I did achieve. I became an award-winning poet at 14 when I won the Editor's Choice Award for a poem that I submitted to an anthology. By 16, I was an internationally published award-winning poet. And by 23, I'd published my first novel, which also won the Editor's Choice Award. During that time, I also got my degree in English and secondary education. And I taught students, middle and high school students with social, emotional, and behavioral challenges. And it was very rewarding work to be doing. I had gone into teaching because of my love of literature, and I wanted to share that love with students. But as I started working with these young people and helping them regulate their emotions and give them tools on how to handle situations and come out stronger and making healthier choices, I found that that was what was most meaningful to me. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to continue teaching. At the time, I was in my second abusive relationship. The teaching atmosphere was very toxic to me, as you might imagine, because I was constantly being triggered from the abuse I was enduring outside of work, as well as my clinical depression and generalized anxiety disorder were not in a place that they could be fostered in a healthy way. And a lot of my friend group at the time were very toxic and controlling. And it made me feel very condensed to where I couldn't support the kids the way that I was wanting, because what I was trying to teach them, I didn't have for myself. I didn't have that emotional stability. I didn't have those healthy coping mechanisms. And I certainly didn't have the healthy relationships and dynamics that I was trying to share with them and teach them how to find and identify. So I left. I made a huge move. I moved back down closer to be with my family and toward friends who truly supported me and saw who I was. And I made changes where I left teaching altogether, at least in that way. I think I still teach, but in different ways, not in a classroom. And I got to work on me because my suicidal thoughts had come back. I had had them before when I was 16. And I knew from that experience and surviving that ideology that this is a temporary feeling for a temporary problem. But when you feel so pressed down, it doesn't seem like there's any way out. And that's when I learned to find the silver lining in everything. And when you find that silver lining, that gives you hope. That's one good thing. And then if you can find one good thing, you can find another good thing. And those good things build you out of that place and kind of lead you away so that you can create something better. Because I do believe that every experience in life is something that we can learn from and grow from. And when you look at it as a lesson, that's then something that I can share or you can share with somebody else. And that made all of those experiences worthwhile to me, where I wouldn't trade them, because now I've learned something that I can go on and teach and share and help somebody through their situation, because I've been there too, and I've been through it. And so when I left teaching and moved away from where I was, from my school, I started actually my first company with a business partner, which was a publishing company. And I learned so much from that experience. I wouldn't trade any of it for the world. We did so many incredible things. That's where I won my third writing award, was with a prompt books that we co-wrote together. And we went to seminars and conventions and learned so many amazing things. Ultimately, it wasn't the professional path either of us really wanted, and it wasn't fulfilling for either of us emotionally. So in March 2020, we decided to close our business, our company, and it was ended up being great timing because the pandemic hit a few weeks later. And at that time, without any of the distractions, I really got to sit and know myself and learn how much grief I'd really been carrying. And this was the same time that I decided to be open about my spirituality and offer tarot readings publicly for the first time in my life, because I'd always been so terrified of the backlash and the witch hunts and what would people say, because even though psychic mediums run in my family and my family has been supportive of it, even though they don't always understand, not everybody else has been. I've definitely been called crazy. And so that was something that I really pushed down and hid away because I didn't want to be labeled as other. And this gave me an opportunity because I saw so many people needing help, needing guidance, needing perspective. And I knew that was something that I could provide for them. So when I offered doing tarot readings, I was met with such love and acceptance and so many requests. It was beautiful and heartwarming. And I knew that this is what I was meant to be doing. And that kind of also prompted, it gave me the confidence to continue my healing journey because, okay, here was this piece that I'd been carrying around with me, this fear of being ostracized that now didn't hold any water, that now I could release and know that I'm on my right path. So I started working on healing the other aspects of grief that I'd been carrying with me, some since childhood. I'd been bullied a good part of my childhood and adolescence because what you see is who I've always been, a little weird, a little off, a little wild and quirky. And that's not something that a lot of young people know how to handle or deal with. And I certainly didn't know how to respond to them at the time. And so that was something that I had to learn. And through my healing, process that, forgive it, release it, and not blame myself anymore. And with the pandemic, I had a whole lot of time to start working on this because everything that I had distracted myself with prior, I used to work 3 to 5 jobs pre-pandemic, was now shut down and I couldn't do any of it. So all the distractions were gone. And I just had to focus on my grief and realize how it wasn't serving me, how it was holding me back, how it was preventing me from actually moving forward and receiving the things that I wanted to receive in my life. So I had to do some deep diving and letting things go and working through things. And it was very challenging. And that's what led me to get my certification as a relationship coach and become an ordained minister and become a certified death doula or grief coach, because these were all things that I knew I can help somebody else through their healing journey, through this hardship, because having a light in that dark is so meaningful. And I want to be that light for somebody else to show them how to turn their own light on and get through it. And that's what led me to open my funeral home, where I could really focus on helping people bring up their grief in this safe space and start talking about it. And through talking about it, work on healing. And that was what is most meaningful to me. There's so much that's deep rooted, and grief is so prevalent in aspects that aren't just related to death. And I know that's a hard conversation to have and it's uncomfortable, but death is the one thing in our life that is consistent and is guaranteed. And knowing that phases of our life die too allows us to really appreciate them and live more fully. And that's what I learned, is a lot of the grief that I'd been harboring was from this loss of things that had ended, relationships, people, places, jobs, things that I had wanted to last but naturally can't. And I got to work processing and healing through that.
Wow. Now, the timing of you creating this business is quite fortuitous. Did COVID have any impact on you making that decision to go down this route? Because there were so many people dying in 2020.
There was so many people dying in 2020, and that's a really interesting question. It definitely played a factor because there was the awareness of, I remember reading stories of how funeral homes and crematoriums couldn't actually, they had such a backlog because of how many people were dying and they couldn't process everything. And it made me aware that this is a shortage that we have as a service, because it's not something that everybody wants to go into or can. And so it definitely brought it into a different realm of awareness that I hadn't thought of previously.
It's fascinating because it sounds to me like everything you had gone through in your life to get to that point had actually prepared you for this work.
Absolutely.
So, as a grief doula, you're working with sadness almost every single day. What do you do to protect yourself from not absorbing the energy of sadness that you work around every day?
That's a great question. And it does get hard because I do also feel that sadness from people, but in grief is love. And that's what I hold on to, is that while there's sadness, why they're feeling that sadness is because there was something meaningful to them. There was something that they loved that was important. And that's the important part to hold on to. And then the rest of it is just a way of feeling that love now that it's on the other side. And so I look at it as being an honor to help them process through this so that they can hold on to that love, but release the pain. And for myself, I know that it's not my burden to carry and that I am here to be a guide for them, but not shepherd it, not take it on with me, that all I can do is hold space, provide tools, and provide support, and that it's really up to that individual to do the work to heal and move through it.
Wow. Now, do you think that all of your work in the spirit realm has also supported you in understanding that although we die on the physical level, our spirit, the essence of life lives on forever? Do you think that has helped you in any way and is helping your clients to understand what life and death really means?
Absolutely. That's definitely helped me, because it's having that mediumship and that work with the spirit realm gives me a different perspective and relationship with death and crossing over and spirit and the soul that most people don't get to have. And so I think it allows me to provide comfort because of my experiences with the spirit realm and with my understanding of how, the physical body may cease to be, but the soul lives on, and how that energy transfers and what that kind of means. And then being able to provide that comfort and understanding to my clients and the people that I work with, regardless whether or not they believe the same thing. They don't have to, but it's something that does provide at least peace if that's something that they're seeking.
Mm-hmm. Now, your business supports social impact projects. Tell us about the social impact projects you support. What made you make a choice to support that particular project, and why it's important for entrepreneurs and people in business to give back?
Yeah, so my business supports the LGBTQ plus community. I don't have an organization specifically right now that I support, but I provide a safe space for the LGBTQ plus community to come, because that community specifically is very near and dear to my heart and endures so much grief societally and in many of their families, and the stories that my friends have told me of their hardships and what they've endured is really important because or very meaningful to me. And it's created that this mission was very important to me to hold that space, because I want every individual to know that their partner should have the authority and control in the event of their death that they desire them to have, that they should be gendered correctly in their memorial and on their death certificate, and that they are honored and their life is honored accordingly. And that's really important to me. And I believe that every entrepreneur and business, small business or large business, it is our duty to give back to society, to support our communities, because that's why we exist. If our communities are supporting us, we should absolutely support them. And I think our existence should be to make our society and our community better and add to it, and not just be something that profits off of it, but be something that is a staple place there within.
Yeah, it's really important for us to have social impact as entrepreneurs. And really, when you give back, it always comes back to you as well. You know, you get those referrals, you get people who've had a positive experience at your hands, talking about you and advocating for you as well.
Absolutely.
So now, if I could take you a few steps back to the past, to that young woman in 2020 who made all these major moves. You made some pretty bold and major moves. You changed career, you changed your location, you made so many changes. If there's a young person who's listening to this interview right now, who's on the cusp of doing the same thing, a little bit frightened, not sure what to do, and you could give them 3 nuggets of wisdom based on what you've learned, what would your advice be?
I would say 3 nuggets of wisdom. 1, it's absolutely terrifying, and that's okay. The fear makes you think about it and strategize better. So use that as something to make your business stronger. Don't let it deter you. I was 100% scared and terrified and thinking, what the heck am I doing? But that made me do more research. That made me crunch more numbers. That made me look up more options and alternatives and structure up backups and safety plans and find out everything I needed to set myself up for success. So I harnessed that fear in a positive way, in a positive outlet, and I didn't let it stop me or deter me or make me go, oh, it's just not worth doing, because I knew that wasn't the truth. That's not okay. It was worth doing. And that fear I just used to propel me to do it better and make sure that I crossed all my T's and dotted all my I's. So if any fear came up, it was like, okay, what would I do in the event of this? What if? What do I do? So if you're feeling scared, use that to your benefit to help you structure better. The second pearl of wisdom that I would give you is that if it makes your heart sing, then it's worth doing. Yes, you can play it safe and you can just go with the day-to-day, but there's so much more you're missing, because I think there's nothing better than helping people, than reaching out, than making a difference. And that can look so many different ways. And if it makes your heart sing and gives back to you, then that's what you're meant to be doing, because then it's reciprocal. What you're putting out, you're getting back in that fulfillment. I know I had a lot of people ask me, you're going to be holding a lot of space and helping people, and isn't that going to drain you? And yes, to a degree, but because it's such rewarding work for me, it's work worth doing. And I'm not as drained as someone else who's not meant to be doing this might be. So if it makes your heart sing, go for it, because that's work worth doing. And the third nugget of wisdom I'd give is that you don't know everything, and that's okay. That's actually one of the most beautiful things in the world, is to keep learning and keep growing, because I promise you, 2 years ago, me had no idea this is what I would be doing, or this is how my life would work out or how all of my experiences would lead me to being successful in this way. And so it's just an adventure, and keep learning and keep growing. And when you can accept that you don't know everything and that you haven't mastered everything, that actually presents more opportunities.
That's absolutely beautiful. So my last question for you is now going to take you into the future. We're going to pretend that time is an illusion and it doesn't exist, and you could teleport into the 100-year-old you, this wise woman who's led you through life to that point. And you're sitting on your porch, surrounded by your children, your grandchildren, your dogs, your cats, whatever it is that's going to be with you at that time. And if you could go and have a conversation with this wise woman, based on how you're living your life right now, what would you say to her?
That's a good question. If I could go to that wise woman, the only thing I can hear myself saying is everything worth it all? And I just know immediately the answer is yes, that it's going to be a great adventure, and the adventure is what's worth having.
I love that. Yeah, we are guided by the future self. You know, we are born with all of the answers to all of the issues and problems we have in life. So I like to go into meditation when I'm trying to figure things out. And I'll ask my future self, what is the next step? You know, where do I go from here? And we have the answers. So
Yes.
if there's anybody out there who is sitting on the fence, you feel you need to change your life and do something else, trust yourself. Like Melissa said, you won't know everything, but you will learn along the way. And if it doesn't scare you, it's actually not worth doing. It's the things that scare us, because everything you want is on the other side of fear, right?
Absolutely.
So take that bold step and make that move. So, Melissa, you offer a lot of services that help other people who are grieving, who are on a soul-searching mission, trying to figure things out. Where is the best place for people to find you?
Best place to find me, there's probably two. You can find me on social media, Instagram at spirit.guide.funerary. And then my website would be the best possible way, www.spiritguidefunerary.com.
Okay, so let me share your website at the bottom of the screen. Anybody out there is looking for some spiritual guidance, some help, contact Melissa. I'm pretty sure you will find a safe haven just to be heard. Sometimes we just need to find somebody who's a distance from us to figure things out. So, Melissa, thank you for your work. It sounds to me that God's Spirit led you to this work at this time when there is a huge need and a lot of people who are grieving. Not many are called to do the work that you do. So I really commend you for stepping into this space and holding space for so many people who need it right now.
Thank you so much.
And thank you to everybody who tuned in today. The Her Story Circle is attracting some phenomenal women from all walks of life, making a difference in small and big ways. So come back again tomorrow when I interview yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And Melissa, thank you again for this interview.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Okay. Wow. Death doula. Very, very fascinating young woman working in the world of grief, supporting those who have lost their loved ones. Love what she is doing with her life and making a difference in the world. So our next speaker is male. For those of you who don't know, the Her Story movement welcomes men to our platform. 25% of our speakers are male, 75% are female. And Paul Hannon and I met through LinkedIn. I did this interview with him and found that he had layers to him that I had not seen on face value. So I've learned now not to judge anyone before I get to know them. So this is what Paul says on his bio on LinkedIn. I get straight to the point. I can help you outpace your competition, equipping your team to become the most well-informed, intelligent, and confident professionals in your market segment in just 6.5 hours. Stop wasting time, money, peace of mind with eternal training sessions that just don't work. It's time to stop working on survival mode and start working with clarity. So, Paul, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. It's always a pleasure when we get men who step up to the plate and decide to come and share their stories. And like I said, I found layers and layers to you that I had not expected. So thank you so much for this interview. Okay, we're going to try again. Small little technical error there. And here we go. Oops. Oh, maybe not. Maybe not. Hold on a second. I know how I'm going to do this. That's the thing about technology. On the best of days, everything goes smoothly. On the worst of days, things don't go according to plan. So I've learned to find different ways of dealing with the issues as they come and always having a plan B so that if the videos don't play, I have another way of getting videos up. So let's see here. I have to just check my phone for an alert. Okay. Thank you for your patience. So we've had an interesting lineup of speakers today, an interesting lineup of topics ranging from the war in Ukraine. It has been very, very fascinating, I have to say. And all of the creative people who've also stepped up to share their stories. Thank you for doing that and being with us. All right. Very interesting. Okay, so I might move on to another speaker instead. This is a woman who became an inventor out of necessity. She realized that every time she went to get her nails done, she never had a place to put her rings. And so she invented something called the ring thing, which has now become a physical product that women are buying and using all over the world. So I will share that video instead while I try and figure out what went wrong with Paul.
Hi, Gertrude. Thank you so much for including me. My name is Kimberly Schaefer. I am 62 years old and I am launching my next chapter as an entrepreneur. As a little bit of background, I worked at the University of California at San Diego for 32 years. I have a master's degree in preventive medicine, and I studied infectious disease epidemiology. And at the university, I had two main jobs over that 32 years. For 14 years, I was the director of clinical operations at the Alzheimer's Disease Cooperative Study, and we would coordinate multi-center clinical trials for Alzheimer's disease, mostly funded by NIH, some funded by pharmaceutical companies. And as the director of clinical operations, I would work on study startup, study conduct, and study wrap up. And at any time, we might have 4 or 5 different clinical trials going on. And the largest was at 68 sites around the United States and Canada. And then for 15 years, I was the administrative director of the Center for AIDS Research at the university. And I worked really closely with the director and the center leadership on the daily operations of the center. We had a budget of about $3 million a year, and the group did and does incredible work. So I loved it. It was really my passion, and I loved it. And then in 2013, while I was still working at the university, I would go and get my nails done, and you have to take your rings off. And I would just always feel frustrated. Like, I don't really have a good spot to put my rings. Where am I going to put my rings? And, maybe there would be a small dish on the table, or I would put them in my purse. And I just started to think there has to be something that's interesting and would take good care of my rings whenever I need to take them off, if it's at the gym or at the nail salon. So I just started thinking about it and playing around with it. And the first model that I came up with was made out of a paper towel, kind of like origami. And that's what led to my product, the ring thing. And I just started working on it. And in 2014, I hired a student intern at the university to help me with the design and to get ready to do 3D models of it, 3D printing models of it. And so it just kept moving forward. And I was working in a very demanding job. And, sometimes if we had grants that were due, I might be in the office until midnight or 2 in the morning, or sometimes I would just lay down and sleep on the floor, and keep going. And I love that. It's just that it made the development of the ring thing a little prolonged, because I just did it as I could, along the way. But during that time, I was able to get 3 patents on it and a trademark. And I founded the company Bring Things Inc., which is the parent company of the ring thing. So in March of 2021, I retired from the university. I had brought the ring thing to market in November of 2020. And I just felt like, I've had this great career, but it's time for something else. It's time for my next chapter. So this is it. I retired in March of 2021, and I'm working pretty much full time on the ring thing. I do occasional consulting on the side, but really I'm focused on the ring thing and trying to make that a success. It's been very interesting for me, because when you work for scientists, everything is very factual based, right? And so you might say, here's my thing, here's what it does, it's good, and that's it. And, that's my nature to do that. And what I'm learning is, of course, in marketing, that doesn't work. You have to do more than that. You still want those things to be true. You still want it to be good, and you want it to be a quality product, but you have to make it interesting and compelling to people and let them know why it's helpful to them and what it would add to their life. So I'm learning a lot. It also pushes me out of my comfort zone. I'm kind of a behind the scenes person, and here I am now in this situation where I go into stores and talk to people about whether they would be willing to sell the ring thing in their store, or approach chains, or online reach out to people, or sell it at markets directly. And that's really been good for me. It's a big change. We hear no a lot, and that's okay. And then I also realized that, it's interesting, because in science, most of the time, experiments don't work. And I'm not sure that people always realize that, who aren't involved with science, but most of the time, experiments don't work. But it's the process of continuing to refine whatever it is that you're investigating, and taking in new information and adjusting and continuing to try. And that's what leads to scientific discoveries. And so I really adopted that myself as I'm working on the ring thing. Like, yeah, I'm going to hear, a lot of yeses, but also a lot of nos, and that's okay. And I'm just learning and refining things, and it's really exciting, and I'm grateful to have this opportunity. I'm very involved in the Rotary Club, and I'm part of our Rotary District Anti-Human Trafficking Committee. So I also donate part of the proceeds from the Ring Thing sales to anti-human trafficking efforts here in San Diego. And that means a lot to me. It's a new company, really just trying to make a go of it, but it's also really important to me to give back along the way. And I'm really happy also that the ring thing is manufactured here in San Diego County. It's about, the production plant is about 11 minutes from my house. And I don't know if they would say it's a good thing that I can get there really quickly, but I'm really happy that I can get there. And it just leads to a great relationship, and I can get there and pick things up or, review something very quickly if they need feedback. And so it's been really a great process, and I'm very happy to have it made in the USA and made here in San Diego. And I guess, something else I would share that I've learned a lot is the importance of relationships. That it's not, and it kind of goes back to the idea of facts. Like, it's not just dealing with the facts, but it's also building relationships with vendors, with potential partners, with people who are buying the ring thing. And you never know where those relationships will take you, but it's really important to develop them and cultivate them and enjoy them. I mean, I've met some incredibly nice people, and I'm inspired all the time by the small business people I see who are making a go of it. So I just really wanted to give it a try. We'll see what happens. But I did not want to get to any point in my life and look back and feel like, what if I had tried that? I'm trying. So far, the reviews have been fantastic, and I'm hopeful for the future. So thank you so much for doing this and for including me. Thanks.
Absolutely amazing, innovative, creative woman who has stepped up to share her story. So, with that, we're going to end today's online summit. I'll be back again tomorrow with yet another lineup of amazing speakers. Thank you to everybody who contributed to this morning. It was absolutely wonderful being here with you, sharing the day with you. And I would love to end with, again, the song that we started off with, which has so inspired me to really look at what is happening in the world and what difference we can each make.
Always ahead of the curve, always thinking about what
I'm about peace, bring about kindness, and the responsibility we have as women to make sure that that actually happens. So if you haven't heard of this song, it's called War is Not a Woman's Game. It is a movement that has been started to mobilize us, the women of the world, to stop the wars. I do believe we have the power to do it. We just have to believe in ourselves enough. Learn the song, share it with your friends, share it with your community. It is life-changing when we all step up and make a difference.
This is a call to all our sisters, the women of the world, to take part in the creation of a new video clip. War is not a woman's game. For too many years, we have been collaborating with the patriarchal narrative, believing that armies and bombs keep us safe. For too long, we have been stripped of our liberty by the story of separation. This is not our language. It is not our way. War is not a woman's game. It is time for the givers of life to protect it. Women of Ukraine, you are not alone. Women of Russia, you are not alone. Women of Palestine, you are not alone. Women of Syria, you are not alone. Women of Israel, USA, Africa, India, Asia, Europe, Australia, North America, South America, North Korea, South Korea, China, Tibet, Afghanistan. You are not alone. Girls, young women, old women, witches, businesswomen, caretakers, fairies, mothers, grandmothers, great-grandmothers, men, trans, fluid. Let's show the world we're here. Let us start with a song, with a statement, with a prayer. I invite you to take part in the creation of this international ceremonial video clip by sending me videos of you singing this song. Celebrating femininity, stepping into your power. If you feel this calling inside you, please write it here in the comments and we'll send you more instructions. Because what? War is not a woman's game. And then we start to sing it. Come on. Yeah.